The town of Ravenwood had always been a place of whispers, the kind that made your skin crawl when you walked past the old stone buildings. Hidden away in the heart of a dense, fog-shrouded forest, it was a place most people from nearby towns knew to avoid. Yet, for all its ominous reputation, Ravenwood was still a town, filled with history, stories, and a secret that no one seemed willing to talk about. For years, the forest surrounding Ravenwood had been known as the Forbidden Grove. The town had made it clear to anyone who passed through, "Stay out." There were tales of people who had ventured into the woods, only to never return. Those who did return spoke of strange occurrences, voices calling from the shadows, figures moving just out of sight, and an overwhelming sense of dread that clung to every inch of the place. But that was all it was, stories. Or so Lily thought. Lily Parker, an eager young journalist, had heard the rumors of Ravenwood and its mysterious woods for years, and she couldn't resist the temptation to uncover the truth. Her recent assignment had sent her on a journey to uncover strange disappearances that had happened near the woods over the years. The local authorities dismissed the disappearances as accidents, but Lily wasn't convinced. There had to be more to the story. Her excitement had clouded her judgment as she packed her camera, notepad, and flashlight, preparing to investigate the heart of Ravenwood's haunting mystery. She had no idea what awaited. The small, sleepy town of Ravenwood seemed to tremble beneath the weight of its own age. The old buildings lined the cobbled streets like silent sentinels, some leaning with time, others freshly painted but still with an air of something forgotten. Lily parked her car by the town's only inn, the Ravenwood Lodge, where she was greeted by a woman with a stern face. "You're here for the story, aren't you?" the woman asked as she handed over the key to Lily's room. "Yes," Lily replied, her voice trembling slightly under the weight of the woman's gaze. "I'm a journalist. I want to know what really happened in the forest." The woman's eyes flickered, and for a moment, Lily could see a flash of something, fear, concern, before she quickly looked away. "I don't know why you're here," the woman muttered, almost to herself. "But don't say you weren't warned." Lily's curiosity only grew. "Warned? About what?" The woman gave a tight smile, her lips barely moving. "The forest. It doesn't forget." That was all the woman said before she turned away, disappearing into the back rooms of the lodge. Lily stood frozen for a moment, feeling an eerie chill settle into her bones. It was as if the air around her thickened, filled with the weight of something ancient and unknown. But Lily wasn't about to turn back. She had come this far, and she wasn't about to leave until she found out the truth. That evening, after settling into her room and grabbing a quick dinner at the local diner, Lily made her way toward the edge of the Forbidden Grove. The sun had set, leaving only the faintest traces of orange and purple on the horizon. The air was cool and crisp, but there was something else too, a heaviness that she couldn't explain. The forest loomed ahead like a dark abyss, its trees towering above her, their branches twisting like gnarled fingers. There was no sign that anyone had ventured into the woods in a long time, and that alone sent a shiver down her spine. Despite her growing apprehension, Lily pressed forward, her camera at the ready. As she stepped into the grove, the sounds of the town faded away. There was only the soft rustle of leaves beneath her boots and the occasional creak of the trees above. It was unnervingly quiet, the kind of silence that felt as though it were pressing in on her. "Just stay calm," she whispered to herself. "It's just a forest. You've investigated strange places before." But even as she spoke, the hair on the back of her neck stood on end. Lily continued walking deeper into the forest, following a narrow trail that seemed to have been abandoned for years. The trees grew thicker the further she went, and soon the path became almost impossible to follow. She pushed through the underbrush, her flashlight casting long, eerie shadows that seemed to shift with every step. Then she heard it. A faint rustle of leaves. She froze. At first, she thought it might have been an animal, perhaps a bird or a squirrel. But the sound was too deliberate, too careful. Something, or someone, was moving through the trees. Lily's breath quickened, and her grip tightened on her camera. She called out, "Hello?" No response. Just the sound of her own voice, swallowed by the forest. She took another step, then another, each one growing more cautious than the last. Then she heard it again, a whisper. Faint, like a breeze, but it seemed to come from all around her. "Leave!" Now, the voice was soft, almost pleading, but there was no mistaking the urgency in it. Lily spun around, searching the shadows, but saw nothing. Her heart pounded in her chest. She was about to turn back, but then she saw something that froze her in place. At the far end of the clearing, standing in the moonlight, was a figure. A man, or at least, it looked like one. He was tall, his back to her, but his shape was strange, like he was not fully there. His form flickered in and out of view, like a mirage. Lily's mouth went dry as she raised her camera, snapping a quick photo. The figure turned, his face obscured by shadows. And then, in a voice that felt as if it came from deep within her mind, it spoke. "Go no further." The words echoed in the stillness, chilling her to the bone. She felt the cold air wrap around her, as if the forest itself was closing in. She turned to run, but found herself frozen, unable to move. The forest seemed to hold her in place, as if it were alive. Watching, waiting. Suddenly, the figure vanished into the mist, leaving only an empty clearing behind. Shaken and breathless, Lily stumbled back toward the town, her mind racing. What had she just seen? Was it real? Had she imagined it all? She didn't know, but one thing was clear. Ravenwood and the Forbidden Grove held secrets, dark ones that no one wanted to uncover. When she returned to the Ravenwood Lodge, the woman at the front desk was waiting for her. Her eyes were knowing, almost sad. "I told you," she said softly. "The forest doesn't forget. And now, it wants you to remember." Lily didn't know what to say. She felt as though the weight of the forest's gaze was upon her, following her every step. She had come to Ravenwood looking for answers, but now, she wasn't sure if she was ready to face what lay ahead. As the night stretched on, Lily lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, her thoughts filled with images of the shadowy figure and the whispering voice. She knew she couldn't leave now. She had already crossed a line. And whatever was lurking in Ravenwood, it wasn't going to let her go easily. The haunting had just begun. The morning light broke through the heavy clouds hanging over Ravenwood, casting a soft golden hue over the quiet town. Lily had managed to sleep fitfully, haunted by fragments of strange dreams, but she woke up with determination. The events of last night, the mysterious figure, the unsettling whispers, still weighed heavily on her mind. However, as she sipped her coffee and watched the fog lift from the trees, a sense of calm began to settle over her. The forest that had seemed so menacing under the cover of darkness now appeared almost inviting in the daylight. The birds chirped cheerfully from the treetops, and the path ahead seemed clear. Lily knew she had to return to the Forbidden Grove, but this time, she was determined to explore it with a sense of adventure, not fear. Perhaps, she thought, she had overreacted the night before. Maybe there was an explanation for the strange events she had encountered. After all, she was in an unfamiliar place, surrounded by old stories and ancient woods. It was easy for the imagination to run wild. She packed her backpack with essentials, a camera, her notepad, a bottle of water, and a small first aid kit. She checked out of the Ravenwood Lodge, the woman behind the desk giving her a small nod, but no words of caution this time. Lily didn't let it faze her. She had come for answers, and answers were what she would find. By mid-morning, Lily was standing at the edge of the forbidden grove once more, her boots crunching against the dry leaves as she stepped onto the narrow trail. The woods were eerily quiet now. No whispers, no strange figures, just the sounds of nature in full swing. The trees seemed to part slightly as she walked, as if guiding her deeper into the forest. There was a soft breeze moving through the leaves, creating ripples in the undergrowth. Lily paused, taking a deep breath. The air here smelled fresh, earthy, and oddly comforting. She had expected a sense of dread to rise again, but instead, it felt peaceful. She took out her camera and snapped a few photos of the towering trees and the beams of sunlight filtering through the canopy. The forest was vast, its mysteries hidden beneath layers of moss and roots, but there was something beautiful about it, something that made her want to uncover every secret it held. As Lily walked deeper into the woods, she felt the pull of something unseen, like an invisible thread tugging at her. It wasn't a forceful pull, just a quiet beckoning, urging her forward. Her mind wandered to the stories she had heard about the forest. How long had it been since anyone had ventured this far? How many legends had sprung up around this place? She wondered if she would be the one to solve the mystery of the Forbidden Grove. It had become her mission, her obsession. The path ahead seemed to stretch endlessly, but Lily didn't mind. She enjoyed the quiet solitude, the way the forest seemed to wrap around her like an ancient guardian. The light dimmed slightly as the trees grew denser, but it only added to the sense of adventure. This was her moment, her chance to discover the truth behind Ravenwood's dark past. It wasn't long before Lily stumbled upon something unexpected. After what felt like hours of walking, the forest suddenly opened up into a clearing. In the center of the clearing was a small, serene pond, its surface still and reflecting the trees and sky like a perfect mirror. Lily stood at the edge, mesmerized by the beauty of the place. She had read about hidden ponds in the woods, places that seemed to exist outside of time. This was one of those places. The pond was clear, its water so pure that she could see the smooth stones lining its bottom. A few wildflowers grew along its edge, adding bursts of color to the scene. For a moment, Lily forgot about the forest's eerie reputation. She sat down on a nearby rock and took in the view. The gentle sound of the wind through the trees, and the occasional splash of a fish breaking the surface of the pond created a soothing rhythm. It was as if the forest was at peace, as if there was no dark history buried here, no forgotten horrors. She pulled out her notebook and jotted down a few observations, sketching the pond and the wildflowers. It felt like a safe place, a hidden gem that had remained untouched by time. She snapped a few photos, thinking this would make for a beautiful article, the peaceful, unexplored side of Ravenwood. Her thoughts wandered back to the stories. Some locals claimed the forest was cursed, others spoke of things far darker, entities that lurked in the shadows, watching, waiting. But as she sat there, Lily felt none of that. There was no fear, only tranquility. It seemed like just another ordinary part of the forest. But Lily wasn't blind to the fact that it was odd to find such a secluded, untouched place in the heart of a forest known for its dangers. The pond was too perfect, too serene. And yet, there was no explanation for it. The stories spoke of something much worse than a simple pond. After spending some time at the pond, Lily reluctantly decided it was time to move on. She had to keep pushing deeper into the forest. There was still much to explore, and the allure of the unknown was too strong to resist. She left the clearing with a sense of quiet contentment, but also a gnawing curiosity. As she walked, the forest began to feel different. The stillness returned, but this time, it felt heavier, more oppressive. There were no sounds now. No birds, no rustling leaves. It was as if the forest had fallen silent just for her. Lily quickened her pace, the hairs on the back of her neck rising. She glanced over her shoulder, but there was nothing there, just trees and shadows. She shrugged it off, chalking it up to nerves. Perhaps the silence was just the forest settling, nothing more. But as she continued on, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Not by any one thing, but by the forest itself. Its presence was palpable now, as though the trees and the earth had grown aware of her intrusion. She wasn't alone here. And somehow, that thought felt both comforting and terrifying at the same time. By the time Lily returned to the edge of the forbidden grove, the sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting the sky in hues of pink and orange. She had spent hours walking, exploring, and yet she hadn't found anything that seemed out of the ordinary. No signs of danger, no lingering spirits. But the closer she got to the edge of the woods, the more she felt something shift. The wind had died down completely, leaving behind an unnerving stillness. It was as if the forest was holding its breath. Lily turned one last time to look at the trees, their gnarled branches stretching into the sky like fingers reaching for something just out of reach. She had uncovered no answers today, but there was no doubt she would return tomorrow. The mystery was far from over. As she walked back toward the Ravenwood Lodge, the town nestled quietly in the distance, she couldn't help but feel that her journey into the heart of the Forbidden Grove had only just begun. Something was waiting for her there. She just didn't know what yet. Lily had always prided herself on being a cautious explorer. Every decision she made was calculated, every path she took carefully considered. But that morning, something changed. It was as if the forest itself had whispered into her ear, urging her to stray from the beaten path, to push deeper into the unknown corners of Ravenwood's forbidden grove. The sense of mystery had become an obsession, and Lily, eager to uncover more, had begun to ignore the warning signs. The previous day, when she left the clearing by the pond, she hadn't turned back. She had assumed that the path leading back to the town was straightforward, but as she ventured deeper into the forest that morning, the landscape had begun to shift. The trees were more dense, the shadows thicker. She had no idea that this small deviation from the usual trail would be the first step toward a fatal mistake. Lily had gone off track to explore a narrow trail hidden beneath the thick foliage. There had been something in the air that day, a peculiar sensation, a kind of heavy quiet that pressed on her chest, urging her forward. Despite the unusual silence, the forest seemed almost welcoming, a strange peace lingering in the cool morning air. Her curiosity had overruled her instincts, and before she knew it, she was walking deeper and deeper into the forbidden woods. She thought she could hear something faintly in the distance, perhaps a stream, or the rustling of animals in the underbrush. But something was off. The sounds were muted, not the usual lively chorus of a healthy forest. It was like the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting. By midday, Lily realized something was terribly wrong. She had been walking for what felt like hours, but the scenery seemed to repeat itself. The trees were the same, tall, gnarled, their branches twisted in unnatural ways. The path, if it could even be called a path, had long since disappeared into thick brambles and roots that tripped her at every step. The once welcoming silence had grown oppressive. The deeper she went, the more it felt as if the forest itself was closing in around her. Every step she took seemed to echo in the still air, amplified by the emptiness. She had been careless. She had deviated from the trail, and now she was hopelessly lost. Panic began to set in as Lily realized that the familiar landmarks she had used to guide her back to Ravenwood were nowhere to be seen. The small clearing she had found earlier in the day, the one with the pond, was gone. She spun around, trying to spot something, anything that might show her the way, but the trees were endless. The forest had swallowed her whole. And then, a shiver ran down her spine. The air had changed. It wasn't the cool, refreshing breeze she had felt earlier. No, this was something different. This was suffocating, as though the forest was exhaling a heavy breath full of secrets. The silence was broken, not by birds or insects, but by the faintest whisper. It was a soft sound, like a hiss, barely audible but unmistakable. Lily froze. She had learned to trust her senses in the wilderness, and every instinct in her body screamed that she was not alone. But when she looked around, there was nothing. No creature, no figure in sight. Just the trees, watching, waiting. Lily's heart pounded as she forced herself to take another step. She told herself it was nothing, just the wind or her imagination playing tricks on her. But the whispers grew louder, closer, and now she could hear them clearly. They weren't words, but rather guttural sounds, like a voice too twisted to understand. Lily's feet moved faster, driven by a fear she couldn't shake. She stumbled through the undergrowth, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Her thoughts were jumbled. Find the path. Find the way back. Think. Think. She should have listened to her instincts the moment she veered off the trail. But now it was too late. The whispers were no longer just sounds. They were voices. They were all around her, in her head, in her ears, and they were coming closer. Lily's pace quickened, but her body was already betraying her. The forest seemed to shift with every step she took, twisting the trees in ways that shouldn't be possible. The air grew thicker, almost as if the shadows themselves were alive, moving with a sinister intent. Every now and then, Lily thought she saw something out of the corner of her eye, a figure, a flash of movement in the periphery of her vision, but when she looked, there was nothing. And then, she saw it. At first, it was a dark shape among the trees, barely noticeable in the heavy shadows. But as she drew closer, her eyes widened with horror. There, standing just at the edge of her vision, was a figure tall and imposing, its features obscured by the darkness. It was a silhouette that seemed to ripple and distort with the trees around it, as if it were one with the forest itself. Lily's breath caught in her throat, her legs frozen in place. The figure didn't move, but she could feel its presence, like an invisible weight pressing down on her chest. The whispers, which had been mere murmurs, were now full-fledged voices. They surrounded her, filling her mind with incomprehensible words. "Leave! Leave now!" The voice seemed to come from everywhere, and yet nowhere. It was low and rumbling, like the growl of some primal creature. Lily's heart pounded in her chest as she took a shaky step back, the air around her now suffocating, thick with an unnameable dread. She turned to run, but the forest seemed to shift once again, twisting her path. The trees closed in, their trunks like prison bars. Every turn she made led her deeper into the heart of the woods, further away from any hope of escape. The figure, still hidden among the trees, was watching her. Its eyes, Lily couldn't see them clearly, but she could feel their gaze, cold and predatory. She could almost hear it breathing, slow and deliberate, as if savoring her fear. Lily ran, her legs burning as she pushed herself harder, desperate to escape. But the harder she tried to flee, the more the forest seemed to close in on her. She could hear the whispering voices growing louder, more insistent, swirling around her like a storm. The words were indistinguishable, but the tone was unmistakable. It wanted her to stay. The ground beneath her feet began to shift, roots and rocks pulling her in different directions. And then, as she stumbled, she fell. She landed hard on the ground, her breath knocked out of her. She scrambled to her feet, heart racing, but when she looked around, she couldn't see the figure anymore. Her mind was spinning. She had to get out. She had to find her way back. But no matter how hard she tried to focus, she couldn't make sense of her surroundings. The forest had transformed. The trees were no longer familiar. The path was gone, and in its place was an endless maze of twisted branches and shadows. And then she heard it, the soft rustle of movement behind her. She turned quickly, her pulse racing. There, just beyond the trees, was the shadow again, watching her. It wasn't leaving. Lily knew now that the forest was no longer just a place. It had become something else entirely. Something ancient. Something that didn't want her to leave. The whispers became louder, more urgent. They no longer spoke to her. They spoke through her. They were in her mind now, filling every corner of her thoughts, pulling her further into the darkness. Lily's vision blurred, and she stumbled forward, only to crash into something, or rather someone. A cold hand gripped her shoulder. She screamed, but no sound came out. Lily's breath came in sharp gasps, her heart pounding violently in her chest as the shadow behind her grew closer. She could feel the pressure of something, someone, gripping her from all directions. The hands that were not there yet felt like they were pulling at her, urging her into the thick blackness that surrounded her. The whispers, no longer faint or distant, became a roaring chorus inside her mind. "Come closer! You are mine!" The voice was unmistakable. It was not the voice of a man or woman, but the collective voice of something ancient, something that had been living in these woods long before she was born. The ground beneath her feet trembled, as though the very earth itself was alive, waking to claim her. Lily stumbled back, eyes wide with terror. She could still hear the thudding of her own heartbeat, each beat echoing in the silence of the forest, and yet the whispering voices drowned it out, growing louder, more insistent, their words unraveling her thoughts. She turned, frantically searching for a way out, but the trees all looked the same twisted shapes, the same dark bark that seemed to close in on her like a noose. Every direction she tried to flee and led her deeper into the heart of the forest, deeper into the place where reality seemed to lose all meaning. A cold hand brushed her arm, and Lily screamed in horror. But again, no sound came. It was as if her voice had been stolen from her, as if the very essence of her being was fading, slipping away into the forest that had ensnared her. She fell to her knees, her hands shaking violently. She reached for the ground, hoping to steady herself, but the soil beneath her fingers seemed to shift, to twist as if alive. She was not alone. She never had been. And then, from the darkness, she saw them. They were the same as the shadow she had seen earlier. Figures, tall and skeletal, with limbs that stretched impossibly long, their bodies a pale silhouette against the blackness of the trees. Their faces were smooth and featureless, but their eyes were hollow, black voids that seemed to stare into her very soul. Lily's heart stopped as they stepped closer, their movements unnatural, jerky, as if they were trying to break free from something that bound them. She tried to back away, but her legs refused to move. It was as if the ground itself had chained her in place. One of the figures leaned down slowly, impossibly close, its cold breath brushing across her cheek. The stench was unbearable. Decay, rot, the scent of something that had long since passed from this world. And then, the whispering began again, this time louder than before. "You have disturbed us. You have trespassed." Lily's eyes burned with tears, her body trembling as she tried to scream, to fight back, but she couldn't. It was as if her will, her very spirit, was being drained away by their presence. The voices, now not just whispers but loud, mocking, accusing, filled her head until she thought her skull might crack under the pressure. The figure's long, thin fingers reached for her. Lily tried to jerk away, but the hand grasped her wrist with unrelenting force. The moment it touched her, she felt a chill that reached into her bones, freezing her from the inside out. She tried to shake it off, but the figure held her tight, pulling her closer. Her vision blurred, her body growing numb. It was happening. She was losing herself. The figures around her began to speak, their voices a slow, deliberate rhythm. You came for the truth. You wanted to know what lies beneath the earth. Now you will become part of it. The words pierced her like knives. Her mind raced. What truth? What had she come here for? Her thoughts felt muddled, disjointed. Had she really thought she could escape this place? Had she truly believed the forest would reveal its secrets to her? The truth, Lily realized too late, was not a secret. It was a curse. This forest, this Ravenwood, was no ordinary wilderness. It was a place of decay, a place where the land itself was corrupted, its very soil steeped in darkness. Ravenwood was the birthplace of something older than time itself, a malevolent force that fed on the souls of the living. Every trespasser, every wanderer who ventured too far into its depths, was claimed, lost to the woods, their souls twisted and trapped in its depths forever. Lily was no exception. As the figures closed in on her, she felt her body weaken. Her thoughts became more distant, more blurred. The very ground beneath her seemed to stretch out and swallow her, pulling her into an endless abyss. Her hands, once trembling with fear, were now stiff and immobile. She couldn't feel them anymore. She couldn't feel anything anymore. The whispers surrounded her, louder now. They were no longer just voices. They were the cries of countless others. Those who had come before her, those who had also been lost to the forest's grasp. She could hear them. Faintly, their cries echoing in the distance. Help! Help me! Stay away! It was all too much. Lily couldn't fight it any longer. The darkness consumed her, pulling her into the void. Time no longer had meaning. There was no up or down, no left or right. The world had become an endless ocean of black, with no shore in sight. She couldn't see her hands, her body, her feet. All that was left was the haunting feeling of being pulled deeper, further into the cold, unfeeling void of Ravenwood. Her mind began to crack, the final remnants of her thoughts slipping away like sand through her fingers. There was no escape, no salvation, only the all-encompassing darkness. And then, in that moment, Lily understood the true horror of Ravenwood. The forest didn't just consume the body, it devoured the soul. Her body was now part of the land. Her soul, lost forever, would become one of the many whispers that haunted the woods, guiding the next unsuspecting wanderer into its grasp. Back in Ravenwood, the last person who had seen Lily, the explorer who had dared to venture into the woods, would never know her fate. And yet, as the wind picked up that night, he swore he heard a whisper in the trees, a voice calling out to him from the darkness, pleading for help. Help me!